Kwame Asani's hand froze on his car keys as he watched through the kitchen window of his Accra home. His 6-year-old son Kofi was seated at the dining table, and his wife of 8 months, Akojua, was stirring something into the boy's orange juice with deliberate, calculated movements. The white powder dissolved slowly as she whispered something that made Kofi's face scrunch with confusion. "What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from." Kwame's blood turned to ice. He'd left the accounting firm early to surprise them both, maybe take them out for ice cream at the Accra Mall. Instead, he was witnessing something that would shatter his world forever. The domestic betrayal unfolding before his eyes felt surreal, like watching a nightmare through someone else's window. "Drink it all up, little one," Akojua cooed, her voice sickeningly sweet. "It will make you feel so much better." Kofi, still recovering from what they'd thought was a stomach flu, looked up at his stepmother with trusting eyes. "It tastes funny, Mama, Akojua." "Funny things are sometimes the best medicine," she replied, gently tilting the glass toward his lips. Kwame burst through the front door like a man possessed. "Kofi, don't drink that." Both Akojua and Kofi jumped. The glass slipped from the boy's hands and shattered against the polished concrete floor, orange juice and whatever poison Akojua had mixed in spreading across the surface, like spilled blood. Akojua's face transformed in an instant, from nurturing stepmother to something cold and calculating. "Kwame, you scared us. Why are you home so early? What did you put in his drink?" Kwame's voice was deadly quiet as he pulled Kofi behind him, shielding the confused child with his body. "Nothing. Just his vitamins. The ones Dr. Mensah prescribed for his stomach problems." Her lie came so smoothly, so practiced, that Kwame realized this wasn't the first time. Kwame's mind raced back over the past 3 months. Kofi's mysterious illnesses. The stomach pains that came and went. The vomiting spells that only seemed to happen when Kwame was at work. The bills from multiple hospital visits that had drained his savings. "Show me the vitamins," he demanded. Akojua's eyes darted toward the kitchen counter where a small glass vial sat next to the spice rack. It wasn't a prescription bottle. It wasn't anything from Dr. Mensah. "Papa, I don't feel good," Kofi whimpered, clinging to his father's leg. That's when Kwame saw it. The slight tremor in his son's hands, the pallor of his skin, the way the boy's eyes seemed unfocused. How long had this been going on? How long had his new wife been slowly poisoning his child? The betrayal cut deeper than any infidelity in marriage could have. This was attempted murder. This was a woman he'd trusted with his most precious gift, his son. Akojua must have seen the realization dawn on his face because she suddenly lunged for her purse. "You don't understand. He's not supposed to be here. You weren't supposed to come home." But Kwame was already moving, his phone in his hand, fingers dialing the emergency number. As he spoke rapidly to the operator in Chui, requesting both police and ambulance, Akojua made a break for the door. She never made it. Kwame's neighbor, Mr. Osei, was just returning from his market run and inadvertently blocked her path with his car, giving Kwame enough time to grab her arm. "Let me go. You don't know what you're doing," she screamed, her carefully constructed mask finally slipping completely. "I know exactly what you're doing," Kwame said, his voice filled with a rage so pure it frightened even him. "The question is why?" As sirens began to wail in the distance, growing closer to their middle-class neighborhood in East Legon, Akojua's expression changed one final time. The panic disappeared, replaced by something that chilled Kwame to the bone, a cold, satisfied smile. "You want to know why?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over Kofi's crying. "Because your precious son was the only thing standing between me and everything I deserve." The ambulance pulled into their driveway just as Akojua delivered her final blow. "And this isn't the first time, Kwame. I've been doing this for months. The question you should be asking is whether it's already too late." Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The fluorescent lights of Ridge Hospital's emergency room cast everything in harsh, clinical white. Kofi lay on the narrow bed, looking impossibly small against the starched sheets, while Dr. Santua worked with quiet efficiency to draw blood samples and attach monitoring equipment. "Mr. Asandi," she said softly, pulling Kwame aside while nurses continued their work, "we need to run comprehensive toxicology tests. Given what you've told us, we're looking for arsenic, rat poison, household chemicals, anything that could cause the symptoms you've described." Kwame nodded numbly, his eyes never leaving his son's face. Kofi had fallen asleep during the 20-minute ambulance ride, his small hand still clutching his father's fingers with surprising strength. "How long will the tests take?" 48 hours for the complete panel. But we'll know about the most common poisons within 6 hours. Dr. Asantua glanced at her clipboard. "The police want to interview you when you're ready. They have your wife in custody, but they need your statement." Through the emergency room's glass doors, Kwame could see Inspector Akwasi Boateng speaking in low tones with 2 junior officers. The man looked tired, his uniform slightly wrinkled, but his eyes held the sharp attention of someone who'd seen too much domestic betrayal in his 20 years with the Ghana Police Service. "There's something else," Dr. Asantua continued. "The preliminary examination shows signs of chronic poisoning. Weight loss, brittle nails, hair thinning. This has been going on for at least 3 months, possibly longer." 3 months. That was exactly when Akojua had insisted on taking over Kofi's meals and daily care, claiming she wanted to be a proper mother to him. Kwame had been touched by her dedication, even bragged to his colleagues about finding such a caring stepmother for his son. The irony tasted like ash in his mouth. A commotion near the hospital entrance drew his attention. Through the glass, he could see his mother-in-law, Mama Joa, arguing with hospital security. Behind her stood his younger sister Alma, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. "Let them in," Kwame told the nurse at the desk. "Their family." Mama Joa burst through the doors like a hurricane in traditional Kent cloth, her head wrapped slightly askew from her rushed journey from Kumasi. "Kwame, what is this madness I'm hearing? Where is my granddaughter, Akojua?" "Your granddaughter is in police custody for attempting to murder my son," Kwame replied, his voice flat and emotionless. The older woman's hand flew to her chest. "Impossible. Akojua loves that boy like her own." "No," Alma interjected, her voice sharp. "Akojua loves Kwame's money and his house in East Legon. She never loved Kofi, and if you were honest, you'd admit you knew that from the beginning." Mama Joa's eyes flashed dangerously. "How dare you speak to me about my own blood? Akojua is a good girl from a good family. This is some misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding about poison in a child's orange juice," Inspector Boateng said quietly as he approached their group. His presence immediately shifted the dynamic, bringing the cold reality of criminal investigation into their family drama. "Mr. Asandi, we need to talk. We've searched your home and found several suspicious substances in your kitchen, rat poison, agricultural chemicals, even some prescription medications that don't belong to anyone in your household." Kwame felt the world tilt slightly. "Prescription medications?" "Digitalis. It's a heart medication. In small doses over time, it can cause exactly the symptoms your son has been experiencing: nausea, weakness, irregular heartbeat. In larger doses." He didn't finish the sentence. Mama Joa sank into one of the plastic waiting room chairs, her defiance finally cracking. "She asked me for money last month. Said she needed to buy special medicine for the boy's stomach problems. I thought she was being such a good mother." The weight of complicity settled over the room like a heavy blanket. How many people had unknowingly helped Akojua in her systematic poisoning of a 6-year-old child? "There's more," Inspector Boateng continued. "We found evidence of financial irregularities. Large cash withdrawals from your joint account, forged signatures on insurance documents. It appears your wife has been planning this for some time." Kwame's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "You should have minded your own business. Now everyone will pay." He showed the message to Inspector Boateng, who immediately called for a trace on the number. "She has accomplices," the inspector said grimly. "And they're not finished." As if summoned by his words, the hospital's main lights suddenly cut out, plunging the emergency wing into darkness broken only by the red glow of emergency lighting. In the confusion of shouting voices and running footsteps, Kwame heard something that made his blood freeze. Kofi's heart monitor had started beeping erratically. Someone was in his son's room. Hit that like button if you're feeling the suspense. What do you think is happening to little Kofi? Share your predictions in the comments. The backup generator kicked in just as Kwame reached Kofi's room, emergency lighting casting eerie shadows across the walls. His son was sitting up in bed, wide-eyed and pointing at the window where a figure in hospital scrubs was climbing back outside onto the fire escape.
Papa.
The doctor lady came back. She tried to give me another shot. Dr. Asantua rushed past Kwame, immediately checking Kofi's foreline and the medication ports. The IV's been tampered with, she announced. Someone injected something directly into the line. Inspector Boateng was already on his radio, coordinating with units outside the hospital. Through the window, Kwame could see flashlights dancing across the hospital's exterior as officers searched for the intruder. Did you see her face? Kwame asked his son gently, sitting on the edge of the narrow bed. Kofi nodded solemnly. She looked like the nurse from when I was sick before. The one who came to our house when you were at work. She always smelled like flowers. A chill ran down Kwame's spine. The home nursing service. He'd hired them when Kofi's stomach problems had gotten worse, never suspecting that Akojua was orchestrating even that. Dr. Asantua was working quickly to flush Kofi's foreline and draw fresh blood samples. We need to assume he's been given something. I'm putting him on activated charcoal and supportive care. Inspector, May Majoa's voice was small and broken. There's something I need to tell you about the money Akojua asked for. All eyes turned to the elderly woman, who seemed to have aged 10 years in the past hour. She said she was buying medicine, but she also asked about Kwame's insurance policies. She wanted to know about the beneficiaries, about what would happen to the house and the business if something happened to him and the boy. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. This wasn't just about removing Kofi as an obstacle, this was about eliminating both father and son to claim inheritance. Kwame's phone rang. The caller ID showed his business partner, Yalmensa. Kwame, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. There's been a break-in at the office. They took the safe, the computer hard drives, all the client files. But here's the strange thing. They left the cash drawer untouched. This wasn't a robbery. When did this happen? About 2 hours ago. Just after lunch. The security guard said it was a woman with proper identification, claimed to be your wife coming to collect some documents for you. Kwame closed his eyes. While he'd been discovering Akojua's attempt to poison Kofi, she had accomplices systematically destroying evidence and stealing business assets. Inspector Boateng finished his radio conversation and turned back to the group. We have a problem. Your wife posted bail. That's impossible. She was arrested for attempted murder. Her lawyer, a very expensive lawyer, by the way, argued that you misinterpreted what you saw. No crime had actually been completed. The magistrate set bail at 50,000 cedis, and someone paid it immediately. May Majoa gasped. 50,000 cedis? Akojua doesn't have that kind of money. Our family doesn't have that kind of money. No, Kwame said slowly, but my business does. Or it did, until today. His phone buzzed again. Another text from the same unknown number. The hospital was just the beginning. You can't protect him everywhere. You can't protect yourself either. Attached was a photo that made Kwame's knees weak. It showed Alma's house in Dansaman, taken from inside her compound. His sister was visible through the kitchen window, unaware she was being watched. They have my sister under surveillance, he told Inspector Boateng, showing him the phone. The inspector immediately dispatched units to Alma's location, but Kwame knew they were always going to be one step behind. Akojua had been planning this for months, maybe from the very beginning of their marriage. She had resources, connections, and a network of accomplices he knew nothing about. Dr. Asanawa approached with the preliminary blood work results. The good news is that whatever was injected into his fore wasn't immediately toxic. Probably a sedative meant to incapacitate him, while they completed whatever they had planned. And the bad news? The chronic poisoning is worse than we initially thought. His liver function is compromised. His kidneys are struggling. If this had continued for another month. She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Kwame felt something fundamental shift inside him. The shock and betrayal were crystallizing into something harder, more focused. Akojua had declared war on his family, had tried to murder his child, had stolen his business assets and threatened his sister. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd failed to finish what she started, and now he knew exactly what she was capable of. Inspector Boateng, Kwame said quietly. I want to hire private security for my son and my sister. I want cameras installed in my house and my office. And I want to know everything there is to know about my wife's background, her real family, and her financial connections. That's going to be expensive. Let me worry about the money. Kwame looked down at Kofi, who was fighting to stay awake despite the medication. She wants to play games with my family's lives? Then let's play. But as he spoke those words, the lights went out again. This time, it wasn't the hospital's electrical system. Through the window, they could see that the entire block had gone dark. And in that darkness, Kwame heard the sound that would haunt him for weeks to come, his son's frightened whisper. Papa, someone's in a room with us. Drop a comment if you think Kwame should fight back or take his family and run. What would you do in his situation? The emergency lighting flickered on just in time to reveal an empty room, except for a small package left on Kofi's bedside table. Inspector Boateng immediately called for the bomb squad while Dr. Asantua evacuated Kofi to another wing of the hospital. Inside the package, wrapped in children's birthday paper with cartoon animals, was a small bottle of children's vitamins and a note written in Akojua's careful handwriting, for Kofi's continued good health. With love from his stepmother, who will never stop caring for him. She's playing psychological games now, Inspector Boateng observed, bagging the evidence. Trying to make you paranoid, make you question every medication, every treatment. Kwame's phone had been ringing constantly for the past hour. Reporters had somehow gotten wind of the story. Prominent accountant's wife accused of poisoning stepson was already trending on Ghanaian social media. His business line was equally busy, but for different reasons. 3 major clients had called to terminate their contracts, citing security concerns and reputational risks. Apparently, being associated with domestic betrayal and attempted murder was bad for business relationships in Accra's tight-knit financial community. Alma arrived at the hospital with tears streaming down her face and fury in her eyes. Kwame, they came to my house. 3 people in police uniforms said they needed to search the premises for evidence related to your case. But Inspector Boateng's team already cleared your house this morning. These weren't Inspector Boateng's people. They had fake identification, fake badges. By the time I realized and called the real police, they'd already taken my laptop, my phone records, even some of my personal documents. Inspector Boateng looked grim. Identity theft, document fraud, impersonating police officers. Your wife has serious connections, Mr. Asante. This level of coordination suggests organized criminal activity. There's more, Alma continued. Mrs. Opoku from next door said she saw them loading boxes into a van. But here's the interesting part, she recognized one of them. It was that nurse who used to come treat Kofi at home. The pieces were forming a clearer picture. Akojua hadn't just married Kwame for his money. She'd infiltrated his entire life, mapping his assets, his family connections, his business relationships, his daily routines. The home nursing service, the domestic staff she'd insisted on hiring, even the new security companies she'd recommended for his office, they were all part of an elaborate long-term con. Dr. Asantua returned with more test results. We found traces of 7 different substances in his system. Arsenic, digitalis, antifreeze compounds, even small amounts of household bleach. She wasn't just trying to kill him, she was experimenting, testing different methods and dosages. Kwame felt sick. His own wife had been using his 6-year-old son as a test subject for murder techniques. How is he alive? Children are remarkably resilient. And she was being careful to keep him sick but not dead. My guess is she wanted to establish a pattern of chronic illness before the final, fatal dose. May Majoa, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke up. Inspector, I need to show you something. She pulled out her mobile phone, scrolling through her text message history. After Kojua's arrest, I started looking back through our conversations. Look at this message from 2 months ago. She handed the phone to Inspector Boateng. The message read, "Grandmother, Kofi's condition is getting worse. The doctors say it might be genetic. Something he inherited from his mother's side. We might need to prepare for the worst." She was already setting up the narrative, Inspector Boateng said, making sure the family would accept his death as natural, genetic, inevitable. Kwame's blood pressure was rising dangerously. The calculated cruelty, the methodical planning, the way she'd manipulated everyone who loved Kofi into enabling his slow murder, it was beyond betrayal. It was evil. His phone rang again. This time it was his lawyer, Kofi Darkwa. "Kwame, we have a serious problem. Someone has filed an emergency injunction against you, claiming you're an unfit father and requesting immediate custody transfer of your son."
What?
Who filed it? Akojua's lawyer. They're claiming you're mentally unstable, that you imagine the poisoning incident due to work stress and financial pressure. They have psychiatric evaluation reports, witness statements, even medical documentation suggesting you've been neglecting your son's health care. Kwame almost dropped the phone. Those are all forgeries. Maybe, but they look very official. The hearing is tomorrow morning. If we can't prove these documents are fake, you could lose custody of Kofi while he's still recovering in the hospital. She can't take custody while she's out on bail for attempted murder. She's not requesting custody for herself. She's requesting it for her sister, Adwoa, who has an impeccable reputation as a children's social worker and no criminal record. The trap was closing. Even from jail, Akojua had been orchestrating a legal strategy to separate Kwame from his son permanently. If she couldn't kill Kofi outright, she'd take him away and finish the job slowly, legally, while Kwame fought expensive court battles he couldn't afford. Inspector Boateng was reviewing the custody documents when his radio crackled to life. "Inspector, we have a situation at the defendant's bail address. Neighbors report screaming and what sounds like a physical altercation. Akojua is fighting with someone?" "No, sir. The defendant isn't at the address. But there appears to be a body in the front yard." As they raced through Accra traffic toward the bail address in Adenta, Kwame's mind was spinning with possibilities. Had Akojua killed one of her accomplices to eliminate witnesses? Had one of her victims' families taken revenge? Had her criminal network turned on her? None of those options prepared him for what they found. The body in the yard was that of Adwoa, Akojua's sister, the same woman who was supposed to take custody of Kofi tomorrow. And pinned to her chest was another note. "One obstacle removed. Tomorrow, 2 more will follow." What are your thoughts on this twisted revenge plot? Comment below and don't forget to share this story with someone who loves dramatic twists. The crime scene at Adwoa's house in Adenta was controlled chaos. Police photographers documented every angle while forensic specialists collected evidence from the manicured front lawn where the body had been found. Kwame stood behind the yellow tape, watching investigators work, trying to process the implications of what he was seeing. Adwoa had been strangled with what appeared to be a traditional Kent cloth strip, a detail that would dominate social media within hours. Someone was sending a message about African values, family loyalty, and the cost of betrayal. Inspector Boateng finished his conversation with the lead investigator and returned to Kwame's side. Time of death was approximately 3 hours ago. That means Akojua has an alibi. She was posting bail and meeting with her lawyers when this happened. So, she has accomplices willing to commit murder for her? Or someone is trying to frame her for additional crimes? The inspector paused, studying Kwame's face. "Mr. Asante, I need to ask you directly. Where were you between 2 and 4 o'clock this afternoon?" The question hit Kwame like a physical blow. "You think I did this?" "I think someone wants us to think you did this." A grieving father, driven to revenge after his son was poisoned, kills the woman who is about to take custody of his child. It's a compelling narrative. Kwame's phone buzzed with yet another unknown number. The message was brief but chilling. 2 down. Check your business account. He immediately called his bank's customer service line entering his account information with shaking fingers. The automated system confirmed his worst fears. His business account, which had contained nearly 200,000 sadies that morning, now showed a balance of 12 sadies. "They've cleaned out my business account," he told Inspector Boateng. "Everything. The payroll money, the client deposits, the operating capital. That gives you another motive for murder," the inspector pointed out grimly. Financial desperation. A commotion near the crime scene tape caught their attention. Akosua herself was approaching, flanked by her expensive lawyer and what appeared to be a private security team. She was dressed in traditional mourning attire, white cloth with minimal jewelry, and her face was a mask of grief and shock. "My sister," she wailed, pushing past the police barriers. "Who would do this to my innocent sister?" The performance was Oscar-worthy. Tears streamed down her face as she collapsed near the body, her cries of anguish echoing through the quiet neighborhood. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the spectacle, and several began comforting the grieving woman. Mr. Santi, her lawyer, approached with a formal document. "In light of this tragedy and the clear danger to all parties involved, we're requesting emergency protective custody for your son. The court has agreed to an immediate hearing."
Now?
Tonight. The magistrate is concerned that the violence is escalating. "Another family member is dead, your business has been destroyed, and frankly, you're the common factor in all these incidents." Kwame realized he was being expertly maneuvered. Every move Akosua made was calculated to make him appear dangerous, unstable, or criminally negligent. The poisoning attempt could be dismissed as a misunderstanding between stressed parents. The business theft could be blamed on his poor financial management. His sister's harassment could be written off as paranoid delusions. But Adwoa's murder? That was the masterstroke. It eliminated the custody threat while simultaneously making Kwame the prime suspect in a violent crime. "Inspector," one of the forensics officers called out. "We found something in the victim's hand." It was a small piece of paper with Kwame's business card stapled to it, along with a handwritten note. "He threatened to kill me if I took custody of his son. I'm afraid for my life. Adwoa." The handwriting looked genuine. The business card was definitely his. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect for destroying his credibility. "That's impossible," Kwame protested. "I've never even met her. I didn't know she existed until this morning." But he could see doubt creeping into Inspector Boateng's eyes. The evidence was piling up systematically, professionally, like a legal brief designed to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Akosua's sobs grew louder as news cameras arrived on the scene. The story was perfect for the evening broadcasts. Jealous father murders woman seeking custody of poisoned stepson. "I want a lawyer," Kwame said quietly. "And I want to speak to my son before anyone takes him anywhere." "That might not be possible," Inspector Boateng replied. "You're about to become the prime suspect in a murder investigation." As if summoned by those words, 2 more police vehicles arrived on the scene, along with what appeared to be Child Protective Services officials. The custody hearing wasn't going to be tomorrow morning. It was happening right now in the field based on the emergency circumstances of a violent crime. Kwame watched his world collapse with the systematic precision of a controlled demolition. In less than 8 hours, he'd lost his wife, his son's health, his business, his reputation, and now his freedom. Someone had planned this destruction with military precision and legal expertise. But as he was being read his rights and loaded into the police vehicle, Kwame caught sight of something that gave him hope. His sister Alma was standing at the edge of the crowd, but she wasn't watching the police activity. She was photographing the news crews, the spectators, and especially Akosua's grief performance. Alma had always been the smart one in the family. If anyone could unravel this conspiracy, it would be her. As the police car pulled away from the crime scene, Kwame's phone buzzed one final time. The message was from Alma. "I know you didn't do this. I'm going to prove it. Stay strong." But the next text, from the unknown number that had been tormenting him all day, contained a photo that made his blood freeze. It showed Kofi's hospital room, taken from inside, with a figure in scrubs standing next to his sleeping son's bed. The caption read, "One phone call from me, and the boy joins his aunt. Confess to the murder. or tomorrow you'll be planning 2 funerals. Are you Team Kwame, or do you think he's hiding something? Let me know in the comments what you think is really happening here. The Accra Central Police Station's interrogation room was a study in institutional beige, concrete walls, fluorescent lighting, and metal furniture bolted to the floor. Kwame had been sitting across from Inspector Boateng for 3 hours, going through his story repeatedly while a court-appointed lawyer took notes. "Let's go through Tuesday again," Inspector Boateng said, consulting his notes. "You say you had no contact with Adwoa before today, but your business card was in her possession. Your handwriting was on a note threatening her life. I'm telling you, someone forged that note. And anyone can get business cards. I leave them everywhere, clients pass them around. They're on my website."
Now.
"That's not possible. You're in custody, and frankly, hospital security is concerned about your presence given the escalating violence around your family. What happened to him?" According to Dr. Asantua, someone tampered with his medication again. This time, they succeeded in introducing a near-fatal dose of insulin into his system. Kwame felt the room spinning. While he'd been locked up, unable to protect his son, someone had made another attempt on Kofi's life. The threat in the text message had been real. His lawyer, a tired-looking man named Kweku Bofo, finally spoke up. "Inspector, my client clearly has an alibi for any incident that occurred while he was in police custody. This should actually support his claims of innocence. Or it confirms that he has accomplices willing to act on his behalf." Kwame's phone, which had been returned to him for the interrogation, suddenly rang. The caller ID showed Alma's number. "Kwame, thank God. Are you hurt? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but Kofi, I know. I'm at the hospital now. But listen to me carefully. I found something important. Can you put me on speaker so the inspector can hear this?" Inspector Boateng nodded, and Kwame activated the speaker function. "Inspector Boateng, this is Alma Asante. I've been investigating my brother's wife, and I think you need to know what I've discovered." "Go ahead, Miss Asante." Akojua Mensah is not her real name. Her real name is Akojua Brenya, and she has a criminal record in 3 different regions: identity theft, insurance fraud, and suspected involvement in the death of her first husband in Kumasi 5 years ago. Inspector Boateng was suddenly very interested. "How did you discover this?" "I hired a private investigator this afternoon. Someone with connections in the criminal records department. Akojua's first husband, Ya Brenya, died of mysterious stomach ailments after being sick for months. Sound familiar?" Kwame felt a mixture of vindication and horror. His wife wasn't just a casual opportunist, she was a serial killer. "There's more," Alma continued. The private investigator found bank records showing that Akojua has been receiving regular payments from a company called Gold Coast Consulting for the past year. Guess who owns Gold Coast Consulting? "Tell me." "Adwoa Mensah, the sister who was supposedly going to take custody of Kofi. They were business partners, not just family members." Inspector Boateng was scribbling notes rapidly. "Miss Asante, where are you getting this information?" "I'm sending photos of the bank records and criminal history reports to your phone right now." Kwame's phone buzzed with an incoming text from the threatening, unknown number. "Your sister is getting too close to the truth. She's in the Gold Coast building right now, isn't she? Such a shame about elevator accidents." "Alma," Kwame shouted into the phone. "Get out of that building now. They know where you are." The line went dead. Inspector Boateng was already on his radio, dispatching units to the Gold Coast Consulting building in OSU. But Kwame knew they would be too late. These people had been planning for months, always staying one step ahead of law enforcement. "We need to get to the hospital," Kwame said. "If they're moving against Alma, they'll move against Kofi next. You're still in custody. Then arrest me at the hospital. My 6-year-old son is dying, and the people trying to kill him are eliminating witnesses. You can interrogate me in the pediatric ICU." Inspector Boateng made a decision that would haunt him for weeks. "Officer Mensah, escort Mr. Asante to Ridge Hospital. Full security detail. If he moves wrong, arrest him. If anyone approaches that child's room, arrest them." The drive to Ridge Hospital took 20 minutes through Accra's evening traffic. Every minute felt like an hour as Kwame tried calling Alma's number repeatedly, getting only voicemail. At the hospital, Dr. Asantua met them at the entrance with grim news. Kofi's condition has stabilized for now, but the insulin overdose caused significant stress to his system. His organs are shutting down one by one. How long does he have? Hours, maybe less. We're doing everything we can, but the accumulated damage from months of poisoning. She didn't finish the sentence. They rode the elevator to the pediatric ICU in silence. Kwame's mind was focused on one thing, seeing his son's face one more time, telling him he was loved, that his father had fought for him until the very end. The ICU was a maze of beeping machines and worried families. Kofi's room was at the end of the hall, surrounded by police officers and hospital security. Through the glass window, Kwame could see his son's small form connected to what seemed like dozens of tubes and wires. "Papa." Kofi's voice was weak, but clear as they entered the room. "I knew you would come. I'm here, son. I'm not leaving you again." Inspector Boateng's phone rang. He answered it quietly, then approached Kwame with an expression that mixed relief with concern. "Your sister is alive. We found her trapped in the Gold Coast building's elevator between the 3rd and 4th floors. Someone had tampered with the emergency systems. Is she hurt?" "Scared but uninjured. And she managed to photograph the entire contents of Akojua's office before the elevator malfunctioned. We have evidence of the financial conspiracy, the false identity documents, and something else." "What?" "Insurance policies on your son's life, taken out 6 months ago without your knowledge. Total value, 2 million sadies." Kwame felt rage building in his chest like a physical force. His wife had literally put a price on his child's head, then systematically worked to claim that bounty. Dr. Asantua was checking Kofi's monitors when she suddenly froze. "Inspector, we have a problem. Someone has accessed Kofi's medical records remotely. The computer system shows unauthorized changes to his medication protocols." "Changes how?" Inspector Boateng was already on his radio, calling for hospital-wide security lockdown. But as he spoke, the lights in the ICU began to flicker, and the elevator at the end of the hall dinged softly. The doors opened to reveal a figure in surgical scrubs, face mask, and medical cap, pushing a crash cart loaded with medical equipment. The person moved with purposeful efficiency toward Kofi's room. "Stop," Inspector Boateng called out, drawing his weapon. The figure didn't stop. Instead, they reached into the crash cart and pulled out what appeared to be a large syringe filled with clear liquid. That's when Kwame saw the eyes above the face mask, cold, calculating, and absolutely familiar. Akojua had come to finish the job personally. Comment below if you think Kwame can save his son. What would you do in this life-or-death moment? Don't forget to subscribe for the dramatic conclusion. Nobody move. Akojua's voice was muffled by the surgical mask, but the syringe in her hand gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "One step toward me, and the boy gets this injection right now." Inspector Boateng had his weapon drawn, but the angle was impossible. Akojua was using Kofi's hospital bed as a shield, the large syringe positioned directly above the child's foreport. "How did you get in here?" he demanded. "The same way I've been getting in everywhere, with legitimate credentials, proper identification, and the kind of planning you people could never comprehend." She pulled down her mask, revealing a face transformed by rage and desperation. "Did you really think a small-town police inspector could outsmart me?" Kwame took a half-step forward. "Akojua, please. He's just a child. Your quarrel is with me. My quarrel is with both of you. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? Months of careful planning, ruined. A perfectly executed long-term strategy, destroyed because you came home early one day." Dr. Asantua was slowly reaching for the emergency call button, but Akojua caught the movement. "Doctor, your hand comes away from that button or the child dies right now. I've got nothing left to lose." "What do you want?" Inspector Boateng asked. "I want what was promised to me. What I earned through 8 months of playing the perfect wife to a boring accountant and pretending to love his pathetic son." Her voice was rising, the careful mask of sanity finally slipping completely. 2 million Sadies in insurance money, plus the house, plus the business assets. I've put in the work. The business accounts are already frozen, Inspector Boateng said. The insurance companies have been notified of the fraud. There's no money left to take. Akojua laughed, a sound devoid of humor. There's always money. Life insurance pays double for accidental death. And a father who kills his son in a moment of grief-induced madness before taking his own life? That's definitely accidental death. The plan crystallized with horrifying clarity. She was going to kill Kofi, then force Kwame to inject himself with the remaining poison, staging it as a murder-suicide driven by financial ruin and family tragedy. The media narrative is already in place, she continued. Desperate father, destroyed business, mounting legal bills, beloved son dying from mysterious illness. Everyone will understand why he snapped. You're insane, Kwame said quietly. I'm practical. Do you know how many men I've done this to? How many grieving widows have collected insurance money after their husbands died of sudden heart attacks or mysterious illnesses? How many?
4.
Across 3 different regions, using different names and identities. It's surprisingly easy when you understand human psychology. Men are so desperate for someone to take care of their children, they'll ignore obvious red flags. Inspector Boateng was trying to signal to his officers positioned outside the room, but the glass walls made any surprise approach impossible. Your sister almost ruined everything with her investigation, Akojua said. But she's trapped in that elevator shaft now, and the building's emergency systems have been compromised. Such a tragedy when curious people have accidents. Kwame felt something snap inside him. If you hurt my sister... You'll what? You're about to be dead. Your whole family is about to be dead. Except for me, the sole surviving beneficiary of your various insurance policies. That's when Kofi, who had been lying quietly throughout the confrontation, spoke up in a voice barely above a whisper. Mama Akojua, why are you being so mean to Papa? The simple question from a dying child seemed to penetrate Akojua's rage for just a moment. Her hand wavered slightly. Because your Papa tried to take away everything I worked for, little one.
But don't worry.
It will be over soon, and you won't hurt anymore. But I don't want Papa to hurt. Can't we all be friends again? Dr. Asantua used that moment of hesitation to inch closer to the medication controls. If she could remotely shut down the 4 system, it would buy them precious seconds. Step away from those controls, Doctor. Akojua snapped. I know every piece of equipment in this room. I've been planning this for weeks. Inspector Boateng's radio crackled softly. Inspector, we have a clear shot through the window from the building across the street. But before he could respond, Akojua pressed the syringe against Kofi's foreport. I heard that transmission. Tell your sniper that if I see so much as a reflection off his scope, this child dies immediately. Kwame made a desperate calculation. If Akojua was going to kill Kofi anyway, he had nothing to lose by attacking her directly. But if there was any chance of negotiation, any way to save his son's life, I'll make you a deal, he said suddenly. You're not in a position to make deals. Yes, I am. Because what you really want is the money, and I'm the only one who can get it for you. Akojua's eyes narrowed with interest despite herself. The insurance policies require my signature for any payouts. The business accounts need my authorization for transfers above certain amounts. Kill me now, and you get nothing. I can forge signatures. Not these. The insurance company requires biometric verification for claims over 1 million Sadies. Fingerprints, retinal scans, voice recognition. They upgraded their security after too many fraudulent widow claims. For the first time since entering the room, Akojua looked uncertain. Here's my offer, Kwame continued. Let Kofi live. Let the doctors treat him properly. In exchange, I'll sign whatever documents you need, provide whatever biometric verification is required, and transfer every Sadie I have to your accounts. And then you disappear. New identity, new country, new life. But my son lives. Inspector Boateng started to object, but Kwame cut him off with a sharp look. Akojua was quiet for a long moment, the syringe still poised above Kofi's fore. You would really sacrifice everything for this child? Everything. Without hesitation. Even knowing that I'll be free to do this to other families? Kwame met her eyes directly. That's a problem for tomorrow. Today, I save my son. Akojua smiled, and in that smile, Kwame saw something that chilled him more than her anger had. Your offer is very touching, Kwame. Very noble. But you're forgetting something important. What? I don't need your cooperation. Because in about 30 seconds, the morphine I already injected into his 20 minutes ago is going to stop his heart. And when you try to attack me in your grief, Inspector Boateng will be forced to shoot you to protect the medical staff. Kofi's heart monitor began beeping erratically. No deal, husband. No negotiation. Just death, exactly as I planned it. What do you think happens next? Can anyone save little Kofi? Drop your predictions in the comments and smash that subscribe button. The heart monitor's erratic beeping filled the room as Dr. Asantua rushed to Kofi's bedside, her hands flying over the medical equipment. He's going into cardiac arrest. I need the crash team in here now. But Akojua still held the syringe, and her position blocked access to the child. Let him die peacefully, doctor. It's better this way. That's when the room's main door exploded inward. Alma burst through with 2 hospital security guards, her clothes torn and dirty from her elevator ordeal, her face a mask of fury. Get away from my nephew. The distraction was exactly what Inspector Boateng needed. He lunged forward, tackling Akojua away from the bed just as she tried to inject the second syringe. They crashed into the medical equipment cart, sending instruments scattering across the floor. Dr. Asantua immediately began CPR on Kofi while calling for the emergency cardiac team. Kwame found himself at his son's side, holding the small hand while watching the monitors flatline. Fight, Kofi. Please fight. Akojua was on the floor, restrained by 2 officers, screaming obscenities and threats. You can't save him. I used enough morphine to kill a grown man. He's already dead. But Dr. Asantua was working with practiced efficiency, injecting medications directly into Kofi's heart while manually compressing his chest. Come on, sweetheart. Come back to us. The defibrillator arrived, and the medical team began the process of trying to shock Kofi's heart back into rhythm. The first attempt failed. The second attempt failed. Again, Dr. Asantua called out. On the third attempt, the monitor showed a weak but steady heartbeat. We've got him back, she announced. But his condition is critical. We need to get him to surgery immediately to flush the morphine from his system. As the medical team prepared to move Kofi to the operating room, Inspector Boateng was reading Akojua her rights while she continued her tirade. This isn't over, she screamed at Kwame. Even if he survives, even if I go to prison, there are others. My network doesn't end with me. What others? Inspector Boateng demanded. You think I worked alone? You think I was the only one hunting for wealthy widowers with young children? There's a whole organization, Inspector. And now that you've exposed our methods in Accra, we'll just move to Kumasi, or to Mali, or even Lagos. Alma approached Kwame as they wheeled Kofi toward surgery. I heard what she said about a network. The private investigator I hired found evidence of similar cases in 4 other cities. Always the same pattern. Sudden marriage, mysterious illnesses in stepchildren, convenient accidents. How many families? At least dozen that we can document. Maybe more. Inspector Boateng overheard their conversation. Miss Asante, I need you to turn over all that evidence to my office immediately. If there's really an organized network of these killers, this case just became a national investigation. As Kofi disappeared behind the operating room doors, Dr. Asantua pulled Kwame aside. The next few hours are critical. The morphine overdose caused significant trauma to his organs, on top of the months of chronic poisoning. His body has been through more than most adults could survive. But he has a chance? He has a chance. Children are remarkably resilient, and we caught this attempt in time. The previous poisoning actually built up some tolerance in his system, which may have saved his life. Kwame sank into a waiting room chair, emotionally and physically exhausted. Alma sat beside him, both siblings processing the magnitude of what they'd just survived. She really would have killed us all, Amma said quietly. She did kill others. Probably dozens of others over the years. Inspector Boateng joined them, having finished the initial processing of Akojua's arrest. Mr. Asante, I owe you an apology. The evidence against you is very convincing, but it was all manufactured by someone with professional expertise in legal manipulation. What happens now? She already is. Apparently, she's been keeping detailed records of all her victims and associates. Some kind of insurance policy in case her partners ever tried to eliminate her. A new voice joined their conversation. Mr. Asante? They turned to see a woman in an expensive business suit, flanked by what appeared to be federal investigators. I'm Agent Akojua Darko with the Economic and Organized Crime Office. We've been tracking this network for 2 years, but we could never get close enough to gather evidence. Your wife's arrest has given us the breakthrough we needed. There are really that many of them? We estimate at least 50 active members across West Africa with connections to similar operations in Europe and North America. They target wealthy men with children, elderly people with substantial assets, and small business owners with significant life insurance. Kwame felt sick thinking about the scope of the criminal enterprise he'd unknowingly married into. The good news, Agent Darko continued, is that your wife kept meticulous financial records. We can trace the money, recover assets, and identify victims going back 5 years. Some families will finally get justice for deaths they thought were natural. Dr. Asantua emerged from the surgical suite, still in her scrubs, but smiling for the first time all day. The surgery was successful. We've flushed the morphine from his system, and his vital signs are stabilizing. Can I see him? He's asking for you. And he's asking for ice cream. As they walked toward the recovery room, Kwame's phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, his heart stopped, expecting another threat. Instead, it was from his bank. How is that possible? He asked Agent Darko. Your wife kept the money in accounts we've been monitoring. Once we had her in custody, we could freeze everything and begin the recovery process. In the recovery room, Kofi was awake and alert, though still connected to several monitoring devices. Papa, the doctor lady says I'm going to be okay. Yes, son. You're going to be more than okay. You're going to be strong and healthy and never have to worry about anyone hurting you again. Is Mama Akojua going to jail? Kwame exchanged glances with Amma before answering. Yes, son. She made some very bad choices, and now she has to face the consequences. Will we be okay without her? We'll be better than okay. We have each other, and that's all we need. But even as he spoke those words, Kwame couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really over. Akojua had mentioned a network, other killers, ongoing operations. How many more families were in danger right now? As if reading his thoughts, Agent Darko approached his bedside. Mr. Asani, I know you've been through hell, but we could use your help. Your wife's records contain information that could save dozens of lives. Would you be willing to work with us to identify other potential victims? Kwame looked down at his son, finally safe and recovering, then at his sister, who had risked her life to uncover the truth. Yes, he said. Let's stop these people once and for all. But what none of them knew was that at that very moment, in a high-rise office building in Lagos, Nigeria, a woman was reviewing Akojua's arrest report and making plans to eliminate every witness who could threaten their operation. The network's true leader had just declared war on the Asani family. Share the story if you believe justice should always win. What do you think the network will do next? Comment your theories below. 3 weeks later, Kwame sat in the conference room of the Economic and Organized Crime Office in Accra, staring at a wall covered with photographs, financial charts, and connecting strings that mapped out what investigators were calling the Black Widow Network. Agent Darko pointed to a photograph of a sophisticated-looking woman in her 40s. This is who we believe is the network's true leader, Efua Aguiman, though she's used at least 12 different identities across 4 countries. She operates out of Lagos but has cells in Accra, Kumasi, Abidjan, and Dakar. Kofi had been released from the hospital the previous week, his recovery remarkable but ongoing. He was staying with Alma while Kwame worked with investigators, trying to build cases against the remaining network members. How many victims are we talking about? Kwame asked. We've confirmed 47 deaths over the past 5 years, with estimated theft of over 10 million cedis in insurance payouts, business assets, and inheritance fraud. Agent Darko pulled up another chart. But here's what concerns us most. The pattern is accelerating. They're getting bolder, more efficient. Inspector Boateng, who had been officially assigned to the task force, leaned forward. Mr. Asante, we've received credible intelligence that Efua Aguiman has put out contracts on you, your sister, and your son. Contracts. Professional assassinations. Apparently, your case has exposed too much of their operation. They consider your family a threat to their entire organization. Kwame felt cold dread settling in his stomach. So, this isn't over. Unfortunately, no. Akojua's arrest was just the beginning. Now we're dealing with international organized crime. Agent Darko opened a thick file. The good news is that we've been able to freeze over 3 million cedis in network accounts, and we've identified potential victims in 5 cities before anything happened to them.
How?
Your wife's records were incredibly detailed. She documented every target, every timeline, every method. It's like she was writing a manual for serial killing. Kwame's phone buzzed with a call from Mama. Kwame, you need to come home now. There are men watching the house. What kind of men? Professional. Expensive cars, expensive clothes, and they're not even trying to hide. They want us to know we're being watched. Agent Darko was already on her radio, dispatching protective surveillance teams to Alma's house in Danceman. Mr. Asante, we're moving you and your family to a safe house immediately. For how long? Until we can neutralize the threat. We have teams moving on network members in 4 cities simultaneously. If we can arrest the key players and freeze their assets, they'll lose the resources to maintain operations. As they prepared to leave the office, Inspector Boateng received an urgent phone call. His expression grew increasingly grim as he listened. We have a problem, he announced. There's been an incident at the central prison. What kind of incident? Akojua is dead. Apparently, she was attacked by another inmate during lunch. A woman named Adwoa Ose, who's serving time for fraud. Agent Darko's face went pale. Adwoa Ose is one of the network members we've been tracking. This wasn't random prison violence. This was an assassination. The implications hit Kwame immediately. The network had eliminated their captured member to prevent her from providing more information. They were cleaning house, removing witnesses, and preparing for war. How did a network member end up in the same prison as Akojua? He asked. Because we've been compromised, Agent Darko said grimly. Someone in law enforcement is feeding information to the network. Inspector Boateng looked stricken. That means they know everything. Our investigation, our evidence, our protection plans. Kwame's phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number, but he recognized the pattern of previous threatening calls. Answer it, Agent Darko instructed. But keep them talking. We'll try to trace the call. Kwame activated the speaker function. Hello. The voice that came through was female, cultured, speaking English with a slight Nigerian accent. Mr. Kwame Asante. My name is Efua Aguiman, and I believe you've been causing problems for my business. Your business is murdering children. My business is wealth redistribution, Mr. Asante. Taking from those who have more than they need and giving to those who have earned it through superior planning and execution. You're insane. I'm practical. And right now, I'm offering you a practical solution to your current difficulties. Agent Darko was frantically signaling her technical team to keep the trace going. What kind of solution? You stop cooperating with the police investigation. You refuse to testify against any network members. You take your son and disappear from Ghana permanently. In exchange, I'll call off the contracts on your family's lives. And if I refuse, then your son dies within 48 hours. Not from poison this time, something much quicker and more painful. Your sister dies within 72 hours. And you die whenever we get bored of watching you suffer. Kwame looked at Agent Darko, who shook her head firmly. I need time to think about it, he said. You have 12 hours to give me your answer. I'll call this number again at exactly midnight tonight. And Mr. Asante? Yes. Don't test me. Akoshua was a romantic amateur compared to what I'm capable of. She wanted to play games, to torture her victims slowly. I prefer efficiency. The line went dead. Agent Darko's technical specialist looked up from his equipment. We got a location, Lagos, Nigeria, but the call was routed through multiple servers. She could be anywhere by now. What are our options? Kwame asked. Officially, we put you in protective custody and hope our international colleagues can locate and arrest Efua Aguiman before she makes good on her threats. And unofficially? Agent Darko hesitated. Unofficially, we use you as bait to draw her out. Set up a meeting, make her think you're willing to deal, then capture her when she comes to Ghana. That's incredibly dangerous, Inspector Boateng protested. Everything is incredibly dangerous at this point, Kwame replied. But I'm not going to spend the rest of my life running from these people. And I'm not going to let them hurt other families the way they hurt mine. He looked around the room at the photographs of victims, at the evidence of systematic murder and theft spanning years and countries. Let's set up the meeting. Let's end this. But what none of them knew was that Efua Aguiman was already in Accra, had been in the city for 2 days, and was planning something far more devastating than a simple meeting. She was planning to eliminate the entire investigation team in one coordinated strike. What do you think? Should Kwame take the deal or fight back? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. The trap was set for midnight at the abandoned Gold Coast Consulting Building in OSU, the same office where Alma had nearly died weeks earlier. Agent Darko's team had rigged the entire structure with surveillance equipment and concealed armed officers on every floor. Kwame sat in the empty reception area, wearing a wire and trying to control his breathing. Through the window, he could see the lights of Accra's nighttime skyline, normal people living normal lives, unaware that a battle against international serial killers was about to unfold in their city. At 11:58 p.m., his phone rang. Mr. Santi, I hope you've made the right decision. I'm willing to deal, but I want guarantees about my family's safety. Of course. I'm a businesswoman, not a monster. Where would you like to meet? Kwame gave her the address of the Gold Coast building, knowing she was probably already inside, having arrived hours early to scout the location and set her own traps. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Come alone, or your son dies tonight regardless of what you decide. The line went dead at exactly midnight. Agent Darko's voice came through Kwame's earpiece. All teams are in position. Remember, keep her talking as long as possible. We need her to incriminate herself on tape. 5 minutes later, the building's lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Through his earpiece, Kwame heard Agent Darko coordinating with her teams. We've lost building power. All units maintain position but switch to night vision. The elevator dinged softly. But when the doors opened, it wasn't Efua Aguiman who stepped out. It was Kofi. Kwame's blood turned to ice. His 6-year-old son stood in the elevator doorway, looking confused and frightened, still wearing his pajamas from Alma's house. Papa? A nice lady said you wanted to see me. She said it was important. Kofi, come here. Come to Papa right now. But as the child stepped forward, a figure emerged from the shadows behind him, a tall woman in an elegant business suit, holding what appeared to be a remote control device. Mr. Asante, meet your son's new best friend. Efua Aguiman's voice was calm, almost maternal. He's wearing a very special vest under his pajama shirt, the kind that makes big noises if I press the wrong button. Kwame's world collapsed. Through his earpiece, he could hear Agent Darko frantically coordinating with bomb disposal experts, but he knew they were too far away to help. You're sick, he said. I'm efficient. Your cooperation ensures your son lives. Your resistance ensures he dies in a way that will traumatize you for whatever brief time you have left afterward. What do you want? I wanted to call Agent Darko and tell her to stand down all surveillance teams. I want the investigation files turned over to me. I want all frozen network assets released. And I want the entire task force to forget this operation ever existed. They'll never agree to that. They will when they realize I have explosive devices planted in 3 primary schools, 2 hospitals, and the Kotoka International Airport, all scheduled to detonate in exactly 1 hour unless I send the abort signal. Through his earpiece, Kwame heard Agent Darko's sharp intake of breath. The threat had just escalated from personal revenge to mass terrorism. "You're bluffing." Efua smiled and pressed a button on her remote. Somewhere in the distance, an explosion lit up the Accra skyline. Small, controlled, but unmistakably real. That was just a demonstration. A small charge in an empty warehouse. The next one will be at the Children's Hospital in Ridge. Agent Darko's voice came through his earpiece. "Kwame, don't negotiate with her. We're evacuating all the threatened locations now." But Kwame was looking at his son's frightened face, at the slight bulge under his pajama shirt that confirmed the presence of explosives, at the cold calculation in Efua Aguiman's eyes. "I'll give you whatever you want," he said. "Just let my son go." "Oh, Mr. Asani, you still don't understand." Efua knelt down to Kofi's level, speaking to him gently. "Tell your papa what the nice lady taught you to say." Kofi's voice was small and confused. "She said to tell you that I'm going to heaven tonight, but it's okay, because Mama is already there waiting for me." The reference to Kofi's deceased mother, Kwame's first wife who had died in a car accident 3 years earlier, was like a knife through his heart. This woman had researched their family history, understood exactly how to cause maximum emotional damage. "But here's the beautiful part," Efua continued. "Your son doesn't have to die alone. You can choose to die with him, holding his hand, telling him stories about his mother. A father's love demonstrated through the ultimate sacrifice. And if I refuse? Then he dies alone and afraid while you watch helplessly. And then you die anyway, along with everyone else in this building and several hundred innocent people across the city." Kwame closed his eyes, trying to think. There had to be a solution, some way to save Kofi and stop this madwoman simultaneously. That's when he heard it, a slight creak from above, as if someone was moving carefully across the ceiling. Alma's voice came through his earpiece in a whisper. "Kwame, I'm directly above her position. I can see everything through the ceiling tiles. Give me a clear shot." His sister had somehow infiltrated the building independently, positioning herself for an ambush that none of the official teams had anticipated. "Efua," Kwame said loudly, "you're right. I should die with my son. Come here, Kofi. Let Papa hold you." As the boy moved toward him, Kwame subtly positioned himself to give Alma the clearest possible angle on Efua Aguiman. "How touching," Efua said. "A family reunion before the grand finale." That's when Alma dropped through the ceiling tiles like an avenging angel, landing directly on Efua's back and sending the remote control device skittering across the floor. The 2 women crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs and fury, fighting for control of the detonation device while Kwame frantically worked to remove the explosive vest from his terrified son. Agent Darko and her team burst through the stairwell doors just as Kwame finally freed Kofi from the vest and pulled him to safety behind an overturned desk. But Efua Aguiman wasn't finished. Even with 3 guns pointed at her, even with her remote control device in police custody, she managed one final, chilling statement. "You think this ends with me? You think I'm the only one? This network spans 12 countries and generates $50 million annually. My death will be nothing more than a temporary inconvenience." Agent Darko knelt beside her as paramedics treated her injuries. "Then you'll have plenty of time to tell us about all your associates while you're serving multiple life sentences." Efua smiled through her pain. "I'll never see the inside of a courtroom." She was right. As the ambulance carrying her to Ridge Hospital passed through the Labadi intersection, a motorcycle rider approached the vehicle and fired 3 precise shots through the rear window. Efua Aguiman died instantly, along with the paramedic treating her. The network had eliminated their own leader to prevent her from testifying. 6 months later, Kwame sat in his rebuilt office in East Legon, reviewing the financial statements that showed his accounting firm had not only survived but thrived following the media attention from the case. Many clients had actually praised his courage in fighting organized crime and protecting his family. Kofi was completely recovered, attending a new school and seeing a counselor twice a week to process the trauma. But he was laughing again, playing with friends, and most importantly, he trusted his father completely. Alma had been offered a position with the Economic and Organized Crime Office, using her investigative skills to help other families who had been targeted by similar networks. She'd accepted, finding purpose in turning her brother's nightmare into a weapon against organized criminals. Agent Darko knocked on Kwame's office door, carrying a thick report. "We want to give you a final update on the network investigation," she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. "How many did you get?" 37 arrests across 6 countries. "We recovered over 15 million cedis in stolen assets and prevented an estimated 23 planned murders. The entire West African operation has been dismantled." "But," Agent Darko smiled grimly, "but you're right to suspect there's a but. The network was larger than we initially thought. We've identified cells operating in Europe and North America using identical methods. This was a truly international criminal enterprise." "Are we safe?" "You and your family are safe. The threats against you specifically died with Efua Aguiman. But the work continues." Kwame nodded, understanding that his personal war was over, but the larger battle against these predators would continue. "There is some good news," Agent Darko continued. "The families of previous victims are filing a class action lawsuit against the network's remaining assets. Conservative estimates suggest each family will recover between 500,000 and 2 million cedis. Justice and financial compensation. The best kind of ending we can hope for in cases like this." After Agent Darko left, Kwame walked to the window overlooking the busy street below. Ordinary people going about their ordinary lives, most of them unaware of how close they'd come to becoming victims of an international murder conspiracy. His phone buzzed with a text from Kofi's school. "Papa, I got an A on my math test. Can we celebrate with ice cream?" Kwame smiled, remembering that night in the hospital when his dying son had asked for ice cream, and how that simple request had represented hope in the midst of despair. He was typing back his reply when another message appeared from an unknown number. "Mr. Santi, my name is Detective Sarah Johnson with the London Metropolitan Police. We believe you may be able to help us with a similar case involving Ghanaian nationals in the UK. Would you be available for a consultation?" Kwame stared at the message for a long moment. Part of him wanted to ignore it, to focus on rebuilding his life and protecting his family's privacy. But another part of him, the part that remembered Kofi's near-death experience and all the other families who hadn't been as fortunate, knew he couldn't turn his back on people who needed help. He typed back, "I'm available. When do we start?" Because sometimes, surviving a nightmare means dedicating your life to making sure other people don't have to experience the same horror. Sometimes, the best revenge against those who tried to destroy your family is using your survival to save other families. And sometimes, the most important victory isn't just escaping the trap, it's making sure the trap can never be set again. As he prepared to leave the office to pick up Kofi for their ice cream celebration, Kwame realized that his story wasn't really about domestic betrayal or even about surviving attempted murder. It was about the power of family love to overcome even the most calculated evil. It was about the importance of fighting back when predators target the innocent. And it was about the truth that no criminal network, no matter how sophisticated or international, can ultimately defeat a father who will sacrifice everything to protect his child. The war against the Black Widow network was far from over. But today in Accra, Ghana, one family was safe, strong, and ready to help others find their own path to justice. The end. What did you think of this incredible journey of betrayal, survival, and justice? If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to African Tales by Ben for more gripping stories that celebrate the strength of African families and the power of love to overcome evil. Share this story with someone who believes in fighting for family and comment below about which moment shocked you the most. Was it the initial poisoning discovery, the hospital confrontation, or the final showdown with the network leader? Your engagement helps us bring more authentic African stories to audiences around the world. Until next time, remember, family is worth fighting for, justice is worth pursuing, and love always finds a way to triumph over evil. Stay strong, stay connected, and keep listening to African Tales by Miracle. ****.